we're talking about the evil eye. The evil eye. Oh, hello, my love. I hope you're having an amazing day. Today, we are talking about a juicy topic. I'm gonna keep those topics short and sweet. At least that's what she said. And because these are very sensitive topics, and I don't want us to get overwhelmed. I don't want to overcomplicate things. And rest assured that if you find this interesting, there is gonna be lots of little episodes, as a form of continuation because I'm absolutely obsessed with this topic as a whole. If you're new here, you should know I'm big on energy. Everything I do has an energetic approach to that. My astrology, my human design, the energy work I do, the Akashic Records reading, everything is pretty much based on energy because I think that is what we are. Steph, what is energy? What do you mean by that? What I mean by that is that force that we cannot see because we all emitting a certain magnetic field. And scientists know that, physicists know that, all of these, all of the new technologies we have, these people, they know that. For example, your Wi-Fi, everyone's talking about AI and technology. That's the latest, thing that everyone is obsessed with, AI, artificial intelligence. Well, when it comes to like all of these things and all of the electromagnetic field, everything is energy. So that's why I think we don't spend enough time talking about energy. And if you, like me, absolutely love to talk about the unseen, well, my love, you are in the right space. And today, by the way, I hope you're enjoying my little radio host voice, but I have to keep it low. I need to give it time to rest, but ain't nobody got time for that. I got so much things to say and share with you guys. So I have to keep my voice really, we're going to keep it really low. That very, very low. So bear with me. Now, today's episode is about, drum rolls, please. We're talking about the evil eye. The evil eye, often called, depending on which culture you're from, it's called so many different ways. But we're going to talk about how it is not what you think it is. And today's episode was inspired by, I know I'm always talking about how to be mindful about your presence in Instagram. You want to control the tool, you don't want to let it control you. Well, guess how I learned all of these rules? Everything I'm talking about on the podcast is all based on experiences, by the way. So I always say that because I don't want anyone to think that. Of course, you free to think about anything you want to think. But I want you to know that I'm not coming here talking at you. I'm not coming here to preach. Coming here to share my personal life experiences. And this episode was inspired by, before I started being mindful about Instagram, I went through that 2-year period where I started using Instagram, which was kind of like odd, but it was because I wanted to see, well, everyone's telling you, if you doing business, you have to be on Instagram, you have to be on social media. You can have a business without social media, which is like, come on, businesses have been around since the beginning of time and without social media. So how, and some businesses are still running without social media today. So how are they doing it? You know what I mean? So it's also a reminder for us not to let ourselves be swayed by pressure and that, hustle mindset of you need to do this or you're going to be left behind. Now, I'm not saying putting our head in the sand and ignoring technology because I don't think that's the right move. For example, I know a lot of us don't like AI, but you need to be able to face the beast. You need to know what's going on. We don't want to be like, we don't want to ignore everything. And the next thing you know, you 70, 80-year-old and you have no idea how anything works and you feel totally isolated. I've seen that many, many, many times. We want to keep in touch with what's happening, but at the same time, and educating ourselves, but being mindful so we don't let the tool, control us. So this is what this episode is about. I want to talk about evil eye because during these 2 years I was on Instagram, I was doing all the things because I was, for the sake of business. And then Instagram is fun. I'm not gonna lie about that. It is fun. That's why people can get caught up in it. It's fun to see what other people are doing. We're humans. We're curious. That is not something that is ever gonna go away. It's part of our DNA. We're curious. We're nosy. We like to know, and also it's part of our survival, right? If we were gonna be in the tribe, we had to keep up with things and be on top of news so we could survive. So I feel like this is all these early caveman skills that we're seeing now and that have been taken to the extreme with social media companies and the tech companies that they know how to engineer, these tools to be addictive. Anyways, I digress again. Let's bring it back. So where I'm going with this. So I have like 2 years, about 2 years of experience, under my belt. So I'm not coming here from the top of a mountain and being a preacher. I was in the trenches with everyone, with all of the stuff that we're hearing with social media. So I used to do a lot of stories posting. I used to do a lot of things, everything. Now I still had boundaries where I still, wasn't posting about certain things because I still kept boundaries, which I think is important to have. Not everything needs to be online, but still I was there too much. You know what I mean? And reflecting back, I'm looking at this 2 years period of my life was when I probably had the most chaos in my life. I'm not gonna lie. Now, I we're not doing this is not about victimhood here. This is not about finding a scapegoat. No, here we're all about taking, responsibility for ourselves, but at the same time, it's very important for us to be able to observe ourselves and our lives from like detach ourselves and look at things from a bird eye view. And when I started doing that, I realized, oh, wait a minute. I started seeing the correlation. And that's when I've always been into energy. I don't think there was ever a time where I wasn't into that, but I started diving more into, in my studies, everything started coinciding. With my Kabbalah studies, they talk a lot about evil eye, but I like the way they talk about it. It's not from that common popular fear, mongering perspective that we often hear. We're not talking about the voodoo doll that you see on TV and then someone just like poking. No, we're not talking about anything like that here. It's more simpler than that. It's energetics. It's literally that. So most people think of evil eye as a curse. That's what I see. That's what I see in within the Caribbean culture. That's what I see within so many other cultures, Indian, Asian. I feel like most cultures around the world would have their own adaptation on the evil eye. Now, I'm not saying they're wrong. This is not I have no business, discrediting other people's experience. That is not the point. But for the episode today, I wanted it to be as universal as possible, right? I didn't want it to be too like mystical and alienating. Oh my gosh, I can't say that word. We're gonna get back to this word. Okay, I need to practice this word, and I'll come back and I'll say it in the next episode. For now, alienate. No, I can't. All right, I'm writing this word right now. I need to go practice how to say this word when I'm done with this episode. For now, what I wanted to say is that I want to make this episode as universal as possible, right? So I'm still thinking about that word. You know how it goes. So we don't want to think. We're not thinking in today's episode about evil eye as a curse. Okay, we think not as a superstition either. It's more, we don't want to think about it as someone actively wishing you harm, because you see it's so much more subtle than that, and even more, dare I say, powerful, as in even more impactful and more quick than that. It doesn't have to be someone, doing all of those mental steps, sending you evil eye. It's not like that, it doesn't require all of these things. So what today we want to talk about, focus on the energetic reality. So the evil eye is a natural energetic law we're not approaching it from a moral judgment perspective. It's pretty much, to put it simple, we want to see it today in the episode when we're thinking about it. We want to see it as an imbalance in attention and projection. Okay, bear with me for a second. So, pretty much the way I see evil eye and the way I'm studying to see it since I started studying Kabbalah more and more is pretty much a reflection of misaligned energy. Pretty much evil eye is what you left with when there is misaligned energy. And energy flows. Energy is always flowing. Energy is never static. That's the thing. When energy is static, that's when we start having all these problems. We start having, sickness problem, all type of things, mental problems. I'm not saying all mental problems. I'm not reducing anyone's reality. I'm just saying, I'm just encouraging the energy talk, the conversation, because we're not talking about these things enough. We're in a society where every element is just quickly prescribed with like a medicine, a medication, the pill, but no one is trying to go at the source, linking things with everything and really focusing on, the energies, the chakras and things like that, which is pretty much like energy sources. So, where was I again? So, like I said, we're not talking about someone being malicious on purpose. Okay. It's literally about how energy of attention interacts with what you making visible. So what you are exposing. So it's how the energy of that person interacts with things that you are exposing. That could be you, that could be, different aspects of your life. This is what is evil eye pretty much. It's that what we get when there is a misalignment of energy. Now, let's talk about backtrap and talk about energy a little bit. Energy is neutral. Energy is not good, it's not bad, it's neutral. It's like, I like to take the lamp, the how do you call that? The light bulb. I was actually staring at my ceiling, trying to remember the word. The light bulb. I like to take it because I think it's such a great example. There's the minus pole, there's the positive pole. Same with a battery, right? There's a minus, there's a positive. One is not good, one is not bad. I know we like to think about positive and minus as negative, but it's just there. It's neutral. It's neutral, right? One is giving, the other one is receiving. It's neutral. It's not good and bad. Now, but we also have to understand that attention itself has an energetic weight. Everything has an energetic imprint and energy. I know it's so hard for us to relate to these things because we can see them, right? That's why we're not talking about them, but we need to talk about these things because they affect everything in our lives. And it's what I another example I was thinking about is the sun and sunlight, right? When we have too much exposure to the sunlight, you can't see it with your bare eyes, but it's affecting you. You can get like a skin burn, or your plants can die because there's too much exposure or not enough. That's how we want to approach it, as simple like that, just simple facts. So when it comes to energy, there's also projection and there's intention. So people don't need to, want to harm you. People don't need to intend. They don't need to have the conscious desire, I want to harm that person. That's not how it works. God forbid. It's not like, it's the intention inside, is how they feel inside. If there's a lot of envy, a lot of desire, a lot of longing, you know what I mean? The most classic example that's crossing my mind right now is relationship. You know what I mean? We need to be careful with that because when we think about evil eye, we're thinking about people sending us evil eye, but we don't realize we can also send evil eye to people. So we need to be careful about that. I talk about loneliness a lot in the podcast because I think that's a topic that it's a reality. It's a major, like, what it's in, how do they call it? Not pandemic, but it's a major health crisis all around the world. And I feel like, so a lot of people are lonely and struggling with all of these things. So I cover these things, but at the same time, I think we need to really be careful that we're not walking around and envying people. Or, the example I'm thinking about is often you see like a couple, and then, if you're not careful, you might, be sending them negative energy because oh, why can't that be me? Or feeling jealous or feeling, resentful and stuff like that. So again, this is not the point. We have to understand that things happen the way they're supposed to happen. We all have there's divine timing for everything. But anyways, that's an episode for another time. So now, but I just wanted to bring up the couple as a great example. How, someone watching, looking at a couple that is, that is appearing seemingly perfect. There's no such thing as perfect, by the way. But a couple that is like lovey dovey, and then some other person might look at them and without even realizing and sending evil eye. So that's how quick it is. That's how quick it can happen. That's why you see in Kabbalah also a lot of people wear the red string. Like I'm wearing the red string right now. It's literally a protection against the evil eye, but not just. I'll do another episode on that. If you're interested, just let me know. But it's not just protection from other people, but it's also protection and reminder that you don't send, those evil eye energy to other people also. So it could be more example. I don't think we need that many examples. I think everyone can quickly have a list of example in their head, when it comes to how it's quick. It's quick. Someone sees your success, even if they see it, with such admiration, but still, if they have misaligned energy, that enough is plenty to destabilize your own energetic field, And in a way, that's what was happening to me on Instagram while I was posting all these stories. And I tend to be the person that is just like naturally like, see the glass half full. So it doesn't mean that I don't go through a hard time. I go through a lot of a hard time, and that's just life. All of us, we go through hard times. That's how we grow. That's the point of the school of life, right? But then when you seeing that, like when you're exposing yourself like that, you are pretty much exposing your field to all sorts of energy in a way that is exactly what I was kind of referring to again in that other episode I recorded recently about the two most powerful energy forces, sexual energy and speech. These are all ways that energies are affecting us all day, every day long, but then we don't realize that. That is also, evil eye is also, okay, you know what? I'm gonna stop here. We're not gonna make this too long. I'll probably need to. I have more. I have a whole list of episodes talking about evil eye. So we'll see. We'll expand more on that with time. For today, I want to keep it more and more simple so we can start the conversation. So like I said, it's very quick. So visibility is vulnerability. I know vulnerability has been very very, very popular in our vocabulary lately. But also we just need to understand that visibility exposes you it just makes you way too vulnerable, and we need to protect our field, and we need to be more aware of what we're putting into the communal field, right? So because what's happening is what is visible is always interacting with the field around it. I think this is also a major reason why the point I was going to say earlier still wants to come out now, so I'm going to say it. I think this is also the reason why, in a lot of religion, for example, they would emphasize modesty so much. But I just think there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's just they did it with too much fear and too much shame and shaming people. But had they, take the time to explain to people, like, listen, this is actually about, well, I don't think a lot of religion even notice that by themselves, but at the core, the seed level, it's literally protecting oneself against like all those different energetic field. Because when you expose yourself, you're opening yourself to different energies, all sorts of energies. And that is the reason, that's why they always tell people to keep your blessings, guard your blessing. Don't talk about what you're doing too soon. The whole concept of modesty, which has taken such a bad rap, but it's all under the same umbrella. It's all about us protecting our field, because it is vulnerable. When it's vulnerable, that is when it can be receptive to so many negative energies that just destabilize your entire field and destabilize your life. All of a sudden, you like, why can't you manifest this? Why can't you manifest that? Well, yeah, because everything is energy. Once we understand that, we start moving into the world differently. It's just mind blowing. So, if your energy is strong and contained, people projection are still gonna brush against it, and it might create a little bit of friction, but it's not gonna have the same impact. So it's not gonna lend and create that much instability. So that's why we also want to constantly be mindful about keeping our field very strong and not like too open, and you moving in the world with like you protecting yourself. Now, I don't want us to be paranoid, that's not the point, but just knowing these things already, you already start moving differently. So historically, I thought it was interesting how so many tradition, like I said before, I think it would be really hard to find a tradition that doesn't talk about evil eye to some extent, or that doesn't have some crazy mystical stories about evil eye, or some really dramatic stories about it, right? And I think it's fascinating because often the truth, to me, it's like a reflection of a truth. But like what happens with seed level is that often they would travel through different cultures. They would take a different flavor, which I think is so beautiful. But the fact that so many cultures still have shared that commonality, to me, I find that it literally should be pointing to us, like our, like a sort of proof, or not that one need to prove, but a sort of reminder that these things exist and they're real, and then we should pay attention and be mindful about them. So this was like I said, the goal of today's episode wasn't to scare anyone, wasn't to shame anyone. It's not to shame anything. It's just to make it practical, how being conscious of what you share and how you share it is actually very, very, very important. We're not doing this out of avoidance, out of fear, but we're doing this out of like empowerment. And just, we're talking about, a lot of time we keep talking about we want to manifest this, manifest that, but a lot of time I find that the concept just float in the air and they don't land, they're not grounded. So this is why it's very important for me to take a lot of those concepts and show how they're affecting us in real life, and how we can, change, adjust our behaviors for better outcome. So that was the intention behind today's episode. And let me know in the comments. I don't know, it'd be fun to start getting some, people sharing. So I can share those various responses and comments and reactions back on the podcast. That would be really, really fun. And just to know what other people are thinking, and that, if this is lending, what you're struggling with, it would be nice to have a sort of conversation going on that note, my love, I also wanted to say that, to wrap things up. So the evil eye is an energetic law. It's not nothing about morality. I don't do morality. Especially with my background, I'm very allergic to morality. It's not about morality. It's about an energetic flow. That's all it is about. I said my background because for anyone listening to this, checking in for the first time, because it's just like I feel like too many of us have a sort of religious trauma, and this podcast is about spirituality. It's not about religion. Like we can all, doesn't matter what religion you are, if you have a religion or not. The goal here is unity. So that's why I'm focusing on spirituality, which is what Kabbalah is. It's all about spirituality. It's not a religion. It's about wisdom. It's about understanding energetic laws, and this is what today's episode was about. The evil eye is an energetic law. It's not about morality. And understanding this, lets you manage your visibility, even if you decide to be visible, or it makes you ask the right question. Think about how you want to be visible, and being a bit more mindful, and pay attention to attention and projection without superstition. It's not about being superstitious, but more about empowerment. And also think about it. The question I'd like to leave you today is, ask yourself, what am I making visible and how am I protecting my energy when I do? So the point is for us to not act on autopilot, but really start showing up in life with a little bit more intention. And at the same time, this reminds me of I do have a training. It's totally free. It's via email. It's a 5 day helping you regain your life force, your energy. And I think it's really cool because every day you get an email and then it's just like a tiny little thing, a tiny little step you can do and focus on for the day and helping you reclaim your energy. So all the link is down below. And also don't forget, you can always book a reading with me, I was going to say a forecast and your birth chart reading with me. We don't just do birth chart, we also do transits. We do all of the astrological gamut. I will talk about that more later. And also talking about energy. I absolutely love doing Akashic Records reading with you. It's pretty much how we dive into the unseen. If you have questions and a lot of, you feel stuck and you like to connect more with your soul, and this is all that we do. And also there's also like I always talk about tarot because I love the tarot so much, but I naturally include the tarot in a lot of those sessions I do. So, anyways, my love, this is all for today. I will see you in the next one and keep shining bright like a diamond. And let's all be mindful of our energy because this is how we create change in the world. If all of us start showing up a bit more mindfully, we are affecting the universal energetic field. And then this is how we start seeing changes in the world. On that note, keep shining bright and see you next time.